The Halloween Twilight Guides. Chapter 1. The Guardians of Halloween. The midnight fog curled around the cobblestone streets of a small town engulfed by the endless polar night, where the sun hadn't risen in weeks and the long, dark hours seemed to stretch on forever. The faint glow of lanterns flickered through the mist, casting eerie shadows that danced along the quiet houses. The whispers of spirits long forgotten rode on the icy winds, filling the air with a sense of mystery. Amid the eerie silence, two identical figures stepped into view, their black lace boots tapping softly against the ground. Lilith and Lilu, both 15 years old, stood side by side, their faces pale against the twilight, their dark, matching costumes making them seem as if they had emerged straight from a forgotten fairy tale. The twins' long, raven black hair, sleek and parted perfectly, was styled differently. One let her hair flow freely down her back, while the other wore hers in two loose braids. Dressed in dark, gothic dresses that seemed to belong to another century, they bore an uncanny resemblance to the daughters of the night. The lace-trimmed collars of their dresses framed their pale necks, and the black silk ribbons around their waists contrasted starkly with the glow of the nearby jack-o'-lanterns. Lilith, her lips curled in a soft, knowing smile, adjusted the silver pendant resting against her chest, a small token from the spirit world they now called home. Her costume, though dark and ominous, carried a hint of mystery. Velvet gloves covered her hands, and a cape billowed slightly behind her, as if she were a shadow of the night itself. Beside her, Lilu, ever practical and sharp-eyed, wore an identical costume but with a slightly more tailored edge. Her dress appeared more structured, as if even in death she sought order in all things. She glanced up at the thin crescent moon, her expression as calm and cool as the evening wind, her fingers lightly gripping the black parasol she carried, not to shield herself from the sun, but as a reminder of her unique elegance and poise. Together, the sisters looked as though they had stepped out of a Gothic painting. Their youth, only 15 years old, was evident in their smooth skin and the subtle curiosity that lingered in their gazes, but their demeanor hinted at the wisdom gained from guiding spirits for many Halloweens. The Night of the Dead was their night, and they moved through it as though they belonged to it. The wind howled like a chorus of ghosts, its eerie sound echoing through the buildings. The rustling of leaves whistled through the narrow streets as Lilu and Lilith stood at the crossroads, watching as the first few spirits began to emerge from the shadows. It was the same every Halloween. Some spirits drifted by with ease, content to follow their guidance. Others were more complicated.
Another Halloween, another night of chaos.
Lilu said, her voice crisp and businesslike. She smoothed her Gothic dress, the fabric shimmering like starlight against her ethereal form. Beside her, Lilith twirled, her loose braids dancing as she took in the festive atmosphere.
Oh, but what wonderful chaos it is,
she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight.
Look at all the joy, the laughter.
Lilu sighed, a hint of exasperation coloring her tone.
We're here to work, Lilith. The veil is thin tonight. We must guide the spirits to enjoy their time in the human world on Halloween without causing harm before they return to the spirit.
Before they enjoy themselves a little too much.
Lilith interjected with a playful smirk. She gestured toward a group of children huddled around a giant pumpkin, their faces alight with wonder.
Can't we let the spirits embrace the magic of the night, just a little? It's the one time they get to feel alive again.
We need to keep things under control tonight,
Lilu said, her lips pressed into a firm line. Her face was serious and focused, her posture straight and unwavering, reflecting her no-nonsense attitude.
There are too many spirits to let things get out of hand.
Lilith's eyes followed a particularly wistful spirit as it floated past, its face a blur of forgotten memories.
You can't rush them, Lilu. Some of them have been waiting for years to feel anything again.
Lilu sighed.
Feeling something is fine, as long as they're not causing trouble while they do it.
Lilith smiled softly, a playful glint in her eyes.
You always talk about keeping order, but what's the harm in letting them linger a bit? Maybe they just need to remember what it feels like to enjoy this world before they move on.
Lilu's brow furrowed, her pragmatic nature warring with her sister's free-spirited approach. She opened her mouth to argue, but paused as a chill wind whispered past, carrying with it the faint echo of otherworldly laughter. Lilith smiled, but before she could continue, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, carrying with it a presence, whether a spirit or something else, its eyes gleaming with mischief.
Do you feel that?
Lilu asked, her senses sharpening, instantly on alert.
There's a spirit here that doesn't seem to belong.
Lilith nodded, her playful demeanor fading for a moment.
I feel it too. But remember, not every spirit is here to cause trouble. Some just need a little nudge to enjoy the night without harm.
As they moved through the square, their contrasting personalities became even more apparent. Lilu's steps were measured and purposeful, her gaze sharp as she searched for signs of spiritual disturbance. Lilith, on the other hand, seemed to float rather than walk, pausing to admire a particularly clever costume or to smile encouragingly at a shy trick-or-treater.
We have a responsibility.
Lilu reminded her sister, though her tone softened slightly.
These spirits rely on us to ensure they enjoy the night safely and return to their realm.
Lilith linked her arm through Lilu's, her touch warm and comforting.
And we will, dear sister. But who's to say we can't spread a little joy along the way? After all, isn't that what Halloween is all about?
As they disappeared into the misty night, the twins' silhouettes blended into one, a perfect balance of duty and compassion, structure and spontaneity. The polar night embraced them, its mystical energy pulsing with the promise of adventures to come. A sudden gust of icy wind whipped through the square, extinguishing a few jack-o'-lanterns and eliciting delighted shrieks from the children. Lilu's eyes narrowed as she scanned the area, her senses attuned to the slightest ripple in the spiritual fabric. There, by the apple-bobbing station, a flicker of mischievous energy darting between the laughing children. As the twins approached the apple-bobbing station, they could see the culprit clearly, a young spirit with bright blue eyes and a mischievous grin. Jinny had always been a troublemaker, but Lilu couldn't help but feel a fondness for the spirited being.
Jinny,
Lilu murmured, her tone a mixture of exasperation and determination.
I should have known.
Lilith followed her gaze, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth.
Oh, let him have his fun, Lilu. It's Halloween after all.
Jinny's eyes sparkled with mischief as he twirled around, his laughter ringing through the cool night air. His mischievous grin widened as he faced Lilu, the embodiment of stern responsibility.
Oh, Lilu, my dear Twilight Guide.
Jinny chimed, his voice light and airy.
I was just adding a touch of excitement to this dreary night. Why stick to the same old routine when we can have some real fun?
Lilu's dark eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of concern crossing her features. She knew all too well the unpredictable nature of Jinny's pranks and tricks.
This is not a game, Jinny.
Lilu admonished, her tone firm but tinged with worry.
You must remember the boundaries we must uphold in Polar Night Town.
But Jinny merely shrugged, his vibrant aura pulsing with energy.
Rules are made to be broken, Lilu.
He teased, twirling on the spot. Lilu folded her arms, her expression stern.
We've talked about this, Jinny. Your pranks tend to go too far.
Jinny's eyes sparkled with mischief.
Aw, come on. It's just a little scare. Nobody ever got hurt from a good fright.
Lilu's eyes narrowed as she regarded Jinny, a faint crease appearing between her brows. She knew all too well the extent of Jinny's definition of a little scare. The mischievous glint in Jinny's bright blue eyes was like a swirling storm of playful chaos, impossible to resist.
Jinny, you promised.
Lilu reminded him gently, her voice tinged with a hint of warning.
We have a delicate balance to maintain tonight. No unnecessary disturbances, please.
Jinny's lips curled into a mischievous grin, but he feigned innocence, raising his ethereal hands in mock surrender.
All right, I promise. No pranks tonight.
He declared with exaggerated solemnity. The words hung in the air like a fragile web of promises, easily broken by Jinny's impish nature. With a playful wink and a flicker of light that danced around him, Jinny twirled and hurried away. But as Jinny darted off, A mischievous glint still lingered in his eyes, a plan already forming in his lively spirit. Lilith watched him go, a mixture of amusement and concern tugging at her heart. She exchanged a knowing look with Lilu, who let out a resigned sigh, realizing that Jinny's promise might not hold for long. As the night wore on and the polar night enveloped them in its eerie twilight, strange occurrences began to unfold in Polar Night Town. Shadows seemed to dance erratically, whispering winds carried echoes of laughter that didn't belong to the living, and the flickering candlelight took on an otherworldly glow. The town's residents exchanged nervous glances, sensing the subtle shift in the air. Jinny, fueled by his insatiable thirst for mischief, had set his sights on a timid human boy who was alone at home that fateful Halloween night. The boy, named Elliot, was known for his nervous disposition and easily startled nature. Jinny had caught wind of the perfect opportunity to stir trouble and revel in the thrill of laughter and joy he once felt in life. Creeping through the silent streets of Polar Night Town, Jinny's playful laughter echoed softly in the crisp air, blending with the distant sound of waves crashing against the rocky shores. He approached Elliot's quaint wooden house, its windows illuminated by flickering candlelight that cast eerie shadows on the frosted ground. With a mischievous glint in his eyes, Jinny floated through the walls of the house, unseen and unheard by human ears. Inside, Elliot sat huddled in a cozy corner, his heart already racing at the slightest creaks and whispers of the night. Elliot's eyes darted around the room, his imagination running wild with every creak and groan of the old house. He clutched his blanket tightly around him, seeking comfort in its warmth as he tried to convince himself that he was safe. Unbeknownst to Elliot, Jinny's ethereal form hovered above him, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. With a delicate touch, Jinny sent a chill through the room, causing a sudden draft that made the candle flames flicker wildly. Elliot gasped, his eyes widening in fear as he scanned the room for any sign of an intruder. Jinny drifted near a vintage clock on the mantelpiece, his grin widening as he prepared to set his plan in motion. With a flick of his tiny hand, Jinny nudged the clock ever so slightly. The old timepiece began to chime softly, its melodic tones echoing through the quiet room like ghostly whispers. Elliot jumped at the unexpected sound, his pulse quickening with fear as his eyes darted around, searching for any sign of danger. As Elliot's heart pounded in his chest, Jinny let out a soft giggle that resonated like a haunting melody in the stillness of the night. The sound sent shivers down Elliot's spine, his breath quickening as he realized he was not alone.
What? Who's there?
Elliot stammered, his voice quivering with anxiety. Suddenly, as Jinny's giggle hung in the air like a haunting melody, two figures materialized in the corner of the room. They were spectral beings with a presence that seemed to dim the flickering candlelight, casting shadows that stretched unnaturally against the walls. These new arrivals were no ordinary spirits. They were known as the Twilight Guides, the twin guardians of balance between the human and spirit worlds. Lilu and Lilith, the Twilight Guides, stepped forward into the dimly lit room with an air of calm authority. Their presence seemed to soothe the jittery atmosphere that had settled around Elliot, their ethereal forms exuding a sense of otherworldly grace and poise. But for a timid child like him, Elliot's fear only grew as he saw two more ghostly figures appear. His breath hitched, and his heart raced even faster, his mind struggling to comprehend what was happening. Lilu's stern expression softened slightly as she noticed Elliot's wide-eyed fear, while Lilith's warm smile radiated comfort and reassurance.
Elliot, fear not.
Lilith's voice was like a soothing melody.
We are here to guide you through this night of mysteries and shadows.
Elliot's gaze darted between the two sisters and Jinny, his heart still pounding from the eerie events unfolding around him. Lilu glided closer, her demeanor commanding yet compassionate.
Jinny, your playful antics have caused distress to this young soul. It is not our purpose to incite fear, but to bring solace and understanding between the realms.
Jinny's mischievous grin faltered slightly under Lilu's stern gaze. He floated closer to Lilith, his blue eyes filled with a mix of contrition and shame. Lilith advanced, placing a gentle hand on Lilu's shoulder, calming her stern posture.
Jinny, we know you mean well. But sometimes, even the most well-intentioned tricks can cause more fear than fun.
The child's spirit smile wavered, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes.
I just wanted him to have a memorable Halloween.
He mumbled, scuffing his spectral foot against the cobblestones. Lilith crouched down so she was at eye level with Jinny, gazing at him with a gentle yet determined expression.
I promise. The good memories will come back.
She said reassuringly.
We'll make new ones, filled with laughter and joy instead of fear.
As Lilith spoke, Lilu watched the interaction closely, a grudging respect for her sister's approach growing within her. Though she still believed in the importance of discipline and order, she couldn't deny the power of Lilith's empathy. Jinny's face brightened as an idea took hold.
I know! I could make the apples in the bobbing barrel float and spin! That would be funny, right?
Lilith grinned, ruffling Jinny's ethereal hair.
Now that sounds like a trick everyone can enjoy.
Lilu observed the exchange between Lilith and Jinny with a sense of reluctant admiration. While she was often the voice of reason and discipline among the Twilight Guides, she couldn't deny the magic that Lilith's empathetic nature brought to their interactions with lost souls. Stepping forward, Lilu fixed her gaze on Elliot, who still clutched his blanket tightly around himself, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity.
Elliot.
Her voice was firm yet gentle.
The shadows of the night hold no power over you unless you let them. Embrace the darkness as you would the light, for within it lies hidden wonders and mysteries waiting to be discovered.
Elliot blinked, torn between the instinctual fear that had gripped him moments ago and the calming presence of the Twilight Guides before him. Their ethereal forms seemed to radiate a soft, protective glow that dispelled some of the shadows lurking in the corners of his room. Lilith approached Elliot, her ethereal form radiating warmth and compassion. She extended a hand towards him, the gesture gentle and inviting.
Come, Elliot. Let us show you that even in the dark, there is light.
Elliot hesitated for a moment, his gaze flickering between Lilith's outstretched hand and the shadows of his room. He could feel his heart beating rapidly in his chest, unsure of what to do. But then he heard Jinny's excited voice chiming in.
Come on, Elliot! We have so many fun things planned for you!
With a deep breath, Elliot took Lilith's hand and allowed her to lead him towards the center of the room. As they walked, Lilu and Jinny joined them, their ethereal forms shimmering in the moonlight that filtered through the window. Lilith smiled warmly at Elliot as they came to a stop next to the bobbing barrel filled with apples.
Here,
she said gently, picking up an apple from the barrel and offering it to him.
Why don't you try bobbing for an apple?
Elliot looked at her skeptically, but then a small spark of excitement ignited within him. It had been years since he had participated in any kind of Halloween activities. He tentatively reached into the barrel and grabbed an apple with his teeth, pulling it out triumphantly as Jinny cheered for him. It was a small victory, but one that filled him with a sense of joy and accomplishment. The Twilight Guides continued to guide Elliot through their various Halloween games and activities, each one bringing more laughter and excitement than the last. As they played, Elliot found himself forgetting about his fear of the unknown and instead embracing the magic that surrounded him. By the time midnight approached, Elliot was exhausted, but also exhilarated. He couldn't believe how much fun he had just experienced in one night. As they began to say their goodbyes before disappearing into the night once again, Lilu gave Elliot a small smile.
Remember what we showed you tonight,
she said softly.
The darkness may seem scary, but it can also hold endless possibilities and wonder.
As the Twilight Guides began to disappear into the night, Elliot felt a small sense of sadness wash over him. He didn't want this magical evening to end. But as Lilu gave him one last smile before fading away, her words echoed in his mind, now resonating with deeper meaning.
Remember what we showed you tonight,
she had said.
The darkness may seem scary, but it can also hold endless possibilities and wonder.
The words circled in his thoughts, no longer just a reassurance, but a lesson, one that would stay with him. Elliot realized that the darkness he'd once feared wasn't just a place of terror, but a realm of untold secrets, waiting for the brave to explore. It was a truth he had never considered before, and now it had become his guiding light. With a newfound sense of courage and curiosity, Elliot looked around his dark room and noticed how different everything seemed now. The shadows that had once scared him now seemed like they held secrets and mysteries waiting to be discovered. He couldn't wait to see what other wonders the darkness held. From that night on, Halloween became Elliot's favorite holiday. He eagerly awaited the return of the Twilight Guides each year and joined in on their magical festivities. And as he grew older, he never forgot the lesson that they had taught him, that even in the darkness, there is always light to be found. As Jinny bounded across the cobblestone paths, his laughter tinkling like wind chimes on a breezy evening, Lilu and Lilith exchanged knowing glances. They had anticipated this moment, the perfect opportunity to impart upon Jinny the importance of their duties and the gravity of the spirit world's connection to the mortal realm. With a gentle gesture, Lilu beckoned Jinny to approach, her silver pendant gleaming softly in the flickering light of the carved pumpkins.
Jinny, dear spirit, there is much for you to learn before you return to our world.
Lilu began, her voice carrying a weight of wisdom that belied her youthful appearance.
You have brought joy and mischief to Polar Night Town, Jinny. But remember, even harmless fun can sometimes have unintended consequences.
Lilith approached, her eyes shimmering with empathy and understanding. Her tone was gentle but firm.
We understand your need for fun and laughter, Jinny. But remember, every action has its consequences. It is our responsibility as Twilight Guides to maintain the balance between the spirit world and the mortal realm. We must ensure that your actions, no matter how playful, do not disrupt that balance.
Jinny's smile began to fade as he listened to Lilith's words. He had never thought about the consequences of his actions before. He was just having fun.
But I don't want to cause any harm.
Jinny said softly, his eyes filled with concern.
We know you don't, dear spirit.
Lilu reassured him.
But sometimes even the most innocent of actions can have unintended consequences in the mortal world.
To illustrate their point, they led Jinny through a dark alleyway where they could see a group of spirit children playing with glowing sticks. The ethereal light from the sticks flickered softly, casting faint, otherworldly shadows against the walls.
What are they doing?
Jinny asked curiously.
They are playing with their spirit energy.
Lilith explained.
But what they may not realize is that every time they use this energy for fun in the wrong way, it weakens the barrier between our worlds.
Jinny's eyes widened in realization. He hadn't considered how his own actions could affect the delicate balance between the two worlds.
Does that mean we can't have any fun at all?
Jinny asked with a hint of disappointment in his voice. Lilu smiled kindly at him.
Of course not, dear one. We just need to be mindful of our actions and make sure that we are using our powers wisely.
As they continued their walk through Polar Night Town, Lilu and Lilith showed Jinny all the different ways they could use their spirit energy for good, creating beautiful light displays in the sky, helping people find lost objects, and more. Jinny couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and responsibility growing within him. He began to understand that using his spirit energy wasn't just about having fun, but could also be a way to bring joy and help others in meaningful ways. As they made their way back to the pumpkin patch, that feeling of pride continued to grow within Jinny. He realized now that, even as a mischievous spirit, he had the potential to make a positive difference. His actions, though playful, had to be balanced with responsibility, something he had never considered before. Upon reaching the pumpkin patch, Lilith and Lilu gathered the other child spirits and began to teach them about their responsibilities when playing in the human world. The twins explained how the spirits can use their spirit energy to help people in need, whether it be by creating light in dark places or guiding lost travelers safely home. Jinny listened intently, eager to learn all that he could. He had always loved bringing joy and laughter to others, but now he saw how his abilities could be used to truly make a difference in the mortal world. As the night went on, Jinny practiced his newfound skills with enthusiasm. He helped an elderly couple find their lost cat by using his spirit energy to illuminate dark alleyways. He also created a beautiful light show for children at an orphanage, bringing smiles to their faces. By the end of the night, Jinny was exhausted but happy. He had not only learned valuable lessons from the Twilight Guides, but he had also spread joy and happiness throughout Polar Night Town. Lilith and Lilu watched with pride as Jinny bid farewell to the mortals and returned with other spirits to the ethereal realm.
You have come a long way, my dear.
Lilith said with a smile as they approached the portal, her tone warm with the pride of a mentor guiding a young spirit. Jinny had been a mischievous spirit, but through their guidance, he had learned the true importance of balance between fun and responsibility.
Your journey is only just beginning, but you've learned so much.
I have.
Jinny replied with a sense of accomplishment.
And I have you both to thank for guiding me.
Lilu placed a hand on Jinny's shoulder, her touch firm yet encouraging.
You were always meant to be more than a playful spirit, Jinny. We were just here to help you see your full potential.
As one of the Twilight Guides, her role was not only to maintain the balance between realms, but to guide lost souls and young spirits like Jinny towards their higher purpose. Jinny's face glowed with a bright smile, his eyes shining with pride and determination as he stepped back into the tranquil spirit world. The soft light of the surroundings highlighted the outlines of his figure, making him appear larger than life. Lilu turned to her sister, a rare smile softening her features.
I suppose a little mischief can be manageable, as long as it brings more laughter than fear.
Lilith laughed, the sound as warm and inviting as the glow of the jack-o'-lanterns.
See? A little mischief doesn't hurt, dear sister. Even on Halloween, it's the light and the shadow that make the night magical.
Lilith said playfully.
Yes, yes.
Lilu replied, a hint of playful sarcasm in her voice.
But a little more balance wouldn't hurt either, dear sister. Even on Halloween.
The twins stood side by side, their gazes following the children's laughter as it rang out into the night. Their small figures danced and played in the moonlit streets, colorful costumes glowing in the light of the jack-o'-lanterns, reminding the sisters of the delicate balance they were sworn to protect. The moral of the story? Guidance and compassion must be paired with understanding. Fun should always be balanced with responsibility, and bravery can be nurtured through acts of kindness.